Yo, what's up everyone? So today we're in the park and I have a really inspirational video that I feel could help a lot of you guys out. It's something that's really helped me in terms of my personal development and allowed me to transcend past where I was at a certain stage. And that topic is judgment. So first I want to talk about what judgment is, why we do it, how we do it, and then move on to talking about how we can move past judgment and into our better, more expanded selves. So the first thing I want to discuss in this video is what judgment is. I think primarily judgment is something that comes from a place where we don't know or we don't understand something, so therefore we take past experiences from our minds and from our relative experiences and project them onto new people, new things, new experiences, and that gives us a little bit more idea of what to expect. So that's one of the reasons why we judge. The first thing I want to get into a little bit more deep is the reasons that we project judgments onto other people, other places, other things, and other communities. And so I think these come in three levels, getting more visceral and more coming from a more intuitive place as we go along. So the first reason I think we judge is because we simply don't know. We simply have not been experiencing something. So we move from taking references from our mind and projecting them onto the current situation. So say we've been in a certain situation in our past, and being in a new situation where we don't know the people, we don't know the experiences, we don't know what to expect, we go and take our mental map that we've created from past experiences, and not just one experience but many different experiences, and project them into our future experience. So the first reason we judge is coming from an unknown place of people or things or even experiences. The second reason we judge is because we don't necessarily agree with people, or we don't necessarily agree with an idea. So this we see a lot when people get into arguments, when people start to fight with each other for very little reasons, sometimes things that don't even mean anything. It's because fundamentally on a level we have an identity, and that identity comprises of what we believe of the world, what we believe of ourselves, basically our sense of reality. And sometimes when our sense of reality doesn't conform to someone else's sense of reality, we tend to look at this person in a different way and think they're different to us because they look at reality in a different way. Now that may not necessarily be the case, but because we're at a place where that's what we feel, it is a genuine feeling nonetheless, and it is a valid experience that you're having. I think the third reason we judge, and this is the most visceral, and it really, you react through your whole body of judgment, and this comes from somebody threatening your beliefs. And this comes not only when somebody doesn't conform to your version of reality, but rather where you feel like this person's presence or this person's idea actually impacts on your reality and threatens either your identity, threatens your existence. And this comes from a very instinctual place. When we were growing up as people in tribes and evolving in that sense, we had to develop all of these visceral reactions so that if a member from another tribe came to us, we would act very fast as opposed to just trusting everything and then either being attacked or being eaten by an animal. We had to develop these sort of instinctual things that happen on a bodily level as opposed to happening in the mind through any sorts of thought processes. So this is why I say this is the most visceral, and this is why sometimes it also gets the most ugly when we react to somebody impacting our view of life and our identity. We lash out in very aggressive ways, and we tend to do things that are not necessarily aligned with the picture we have of ourselves in our mind and in a like a rational sense. So the last thing I want to get onto is how we move past judgments. So we know that we judge people primarily because we don't understand or we don't know, so we just perceive and we project. But we can always move past this by, I find, one simple reason, which is one simple method rather, which is just embracing. So I primarily think that judgment comes from each individual person. It comes from your identity projected onto something else. So not necessarily that what you're judging it will be harmful to you or it's even bad, but we just look at it in that way. And that comes from insecurities within ourselves, our flaws in our identity that we may perceive. And I think the way we can move past that in the most effective way possible, from what I've seen, is to embrace those parts of ourselves, to realize that our insecurities are not necessarily bad. And if somebody perceives something as your insecurity, that doesn't mean anything about you. So once we start to realize that our versions of reality are created primarily by ourselves, and that's the only person that's ever gonna exist in our reality, and it is what we make of it, we can start to realize that once we start to embrace the things that we think are holding us back and the things that make us not worthy, once we start to look at those as individual parts of ourselves that we can love and show respect to and appreciate, we can actually move from a place of projecting all these fears and all these anxieties onto the environment and onto people and onto communities, and we can rather start to also embrace other people's flaws as opposed to judge them. So to move past judgment, I think it's so important that we move past looking at ourselves, first of all, as flawed individuals, and rather look at ourselves as unique individuals that all have different talents, we all have different perspectives, we all have different worldviews, and we're all unique individual people. So I think the best thing we can do to stop judgment is to first and foremost show ourselves love, to respect ourselves, to appreciate everything about ourselves. And you'll slowly start to notice that because you stop judging yourself as much, you start to notice you also start to judge other people as much. And in turn, what happens is that you also start to notice that people start to judge you less as well. And that's not necessarily because they are judging you less, but you perceive judgment as a less important behavior that you have. And it's so interesting how that process can just continue to help you be the person that you want to be. I think also one thing for me where I've really seen this is especially when I'm trying to achieve certain things in life. I used to look at people, successful people who had money, people who were big because they went to the gym, people who were wealthy. I used to look at these people with a lot of jealousy and envy, thinking that, oh, there's probably something wrong with this person. They probably stole this money. They probably are ripping people off to have this money. And I realized those were just projections of my insecurity about not having money and not being able to earn and not being able to be social and not being able to go to the gym and increase my physicality. And I realized, like, in that process that the more I did that, the less I would achieve in that field because I demonized what these people had achieved. And so when I really started finding results in terms of physicality, mentality, spirituality, business, is when I started to look at these people rather with respect for what they had done. Sure, a lot of people may think that, being rich is not a great thing, you might be evil. But once you realize that that doesn't really define who you are, money doesn't really mean that you're anyone, that you can do anything. It's just something that you have. You start to realize that that's not actually such a bad thing. And once you start to realize that those things that you want, that you were jealous about and you used to judge, are not actually bad things, you can start to eliminate those beliefs from your head, and those areas of interest that you have in which you're trying to get success come much easier because you simply lack the judgment, you lack the resistance to allow them to flow into your life, and you much more effectively can go along your path, whether it be at the gym, whether it be in a social setting, whether it be making money, because you lack that judgment. So today's video is all about judgment. I hope you learned something about why we judge, what are the ways we judge and why we judge. And just to touch on it again, like, you really need to embrace who you are. You need to embrace the situations around you, the communities, the uniqueness of everyone. Once you're able to do that, you'll slowly start to notice that there's no need to judge anymore. There's just an inclination to embrace and appreciate everything around you. So first and foremost, appreciate yourself, love yourself. Every single one of your flaws, just don't think of them as flaws, because they're not. And once you start to embrace yourself, you'll start to embrace the environment, you'll start to embrace people around you, and you'll just start to attract the things into your life that you really want to be there, whether it be money, whether it be happiness, whether it be great mindsets. So just keep on practicing this. It's not something that you just wake up being able to do, but the more you practice it, the better you become. And I definitely believe that you guys can do it. So until the next video, have a great one.